The Lover Jinn. This is the story of a young girl named Ruby, who was the epitome of beauty and innocence. Her sparkling eyes, long black hair, and fair complexion mesmerized everyone who saw her. She lived with her mother in a small village. Her father had passed away years ago, and her mother made a living through sewing and embroidery. The beginning of strange incidents. Ruby's life was quite ordinary, but for the past few days, she had been experiencing bizarre occurrences. Sometimes, her reflection in the mirror would distort. At other times, she would hear whispers at night. Initially, she ignored these incidents, but as time passed, they became more frequent. The first terrifying night. One night, while Ruby was asleep in her room, the window suddenly flung open. A gust of cold wind swept through the room. Startled, she woke up and saw a dark shadow near the window. "Ruby," a deep, echoing voice called out. Ruby trembled with fear. As she stepped back, the shadow transformed into a hazy figure. It was a tall, imposing man with eyes that burned like embers. "I love you, Ruby. You are only mine," he declared, his voice filled with an eerie menace. The Jinn's hold. Ruby tried to scream, but before she could, she felt herself being lifted into the air. This was no ordinary man. It was a lover Jinn who had claimed Ruby as his for years. He would not let her belong to anyone else. Seeking help. The next day, Ruby told her mother everything, but her mother dismissed it as mere imagination. However, when objects in the house began moving on their own, doors opened and shut without reason, and Ruby felt an invisible presence touching her. Her mother grew terrified. The scholar's intervention. Her mother sought help from a revered village scholar. He warned, "This is a lover Jinn. He will not let Ruby belong to anyone else. Defeating him will be difficult, but with Allah's help, we may succeed." That night, the scholar began reciting Quranic verses. Strange noises filled the house. Windows banged violently, and Ruby screamed in pain, as if something was gripping her tightly. The scholar continued his recitations, and suddenly, a horrifying scream echoed through the air. Apparent deliverance, but a deafening silence followed. The Jinn seemed to have left, but Ruby was unconscious. When she finally woke up days later, the brightness in her eyes had faded. She remained unusually quiet, as if she had lost something within herself. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief, believing the Jinn was gone for good. A horrifying end. One night, as Ruby stood before the mirror, her reflection suddenly smirked, but it was not her own smile. It was the sinister grin of the Jinn. Ruby's screams echoed throughout the house, and the doors slammed shut on their own. Her mother tried desperately to open the door, but when she finally forced her way inside, Ruby was gone. All that remained was a dark shadow laughing inside the mirror as the entire house plunged into darkness. A dreadful conclusion. A few days later, Ruby's lifeless body was discovered in a desolate area on the outskirts of the village. Her eyes were wide open, as if she had witnessed something horrifying in her final moments. Strange marks covered her body, as though she had been restrained by an unseen force. The villagers were terrified, unable to comprehend what had happened. The moral of the story. This story teaches us not to ignore supernatural forces. Sometimes, things exist beyond our understanding, whether we believe in them or not. It also highlights the importance of seeking protection through prayers and Quranic verses. Not all declarations of love are genuine. Some are shackles of horror. If one encounters strange occurrences, they should take them seriously and seek help without delay.